The songs we love, the songs we hate, the songs we've never heard. What do they all have in common? Music speaks to us in ways we may not realize. Discover how to use what you already have to get what you really want. You're listening to Power of a Positive Playlist on the OBBM Network. Here's your host, John Chester.
John Chester, Power of Positive Playlist here on the OBBM. Welcome back. Well, I've got some bad news for you. You see, the political cycle has begun, and the tenor of the already shrill political rhetoric is about to go into hyperdrive. The stuff is going to hit the fan, the finger pointing, the blame game, and out-and-out lying will fill the air. Now, it's going to be from both sides. And I know this show generally steers away from politics, and that's my responsibility, as I generally do not have time to wade into the manure canal called politics, as I'm attending to my family, my own personal growth and issues, and my clients. And I used to, but I found myself not really a good conversationalist about it, and I normally find that it's an over-emotional thing, and I'd rather connect with people than work to divide when it comes to common, say, party conversations. I talk to my strengths, though, and I leave calling out the treasonous, senile, socialist-sucking lizards of hell to others who are better qualified. Now, my job is mental hygiene and music. Having said that, let's talk about how the political message is engineered to better understand the social landscape. Now, this I understand, because I've been watching it for a really long time. Even when I was a kid, I started to see things change. I want to call your attention to the fact of how entertainment has bled over into the news, political, and information machines that are force-fed to us. Now, I got some of this from the Northwestern School of Communication website on the 4 experts explain how music connects different media. Here's the quote. From film and television to video games, music serves multiple functions in visual media. It can shape emotional responses. Let me reread that. It can shape emotional responses, create a smooth flow between scenes and segments, give meaning to a character's actions, reinforce themes, or link a series of events. Now, what if we take this information, this class where 4 experts explain how music connects, and add the news and the information industry? I would have loved to have taken this class. It sounds fascinating, and I don't mean that sarcastically. I think the people that were listed in it were one of them worked with Tarantino, and others were groundbreaking in their field for movies. I'm interested, though, because I see it happen in news, and when I say information industry, I also mean like video blogs. I mean when you go to a seminar or a conference. They certainly have music there to motivate, move, and to sell the concepts. So anyway, I remember back in the 1970s, there was a shift in the delivery of how the news was delivered to the populace. Now, we call it happy news. The network's push to turn the Vietnam era, the Watergate hearings, gas shortages into entertainment and increase viewership, because it was dismal. We were sick and tired of how bad things were, and they were bringing it to us in glorious color on our brand new color TV sets, and doing it with very different modality. Now, back in the 60s, even the 50s, when you turned into the 3 stations that had news 2 or 3 times a day, normally they had it like at noon and then in the evening, it was nothing more than station identification. Then the local station handed over control of the feed to the network. There was no music unless you count the 3 tones of GEC to signify the owners of the network. That was the General Electric Corporation of NBC. There was a fade out and a fade in to Chet Huntley and David Brinkley, or Walter Cronkite, who, by the way, don't believe all the memes floating around the web. Cronkite was biased. He was against the Vietnam War, and he and Dan Rather flooded the evening news with graphic images of that hell. Were we less biased in Cronkite's day? Yes. We had to be. Also, in 1983, 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies. Are we more biased today? How can we not be more biased today when 6 companies control 90% of America's media? And that's a quote from Business Insider. Just 232 media executives controlled the information diet of 277 million Americans, and all without the fairness doctrine that came later. It's worth remembering that when Uncle Walter took over the anchor chair, the common practice was 15 minutes of news from the local station, like Dallas, Fort Worth, or whatever, plus the 15-minute network newscast. That's 15 minutes. It was a big deal when the networks expanded to a half-hour newscast. What's significant about that? They weren't striving to fill 24-hour days, day after day, just a quarter or a half hour to pack in news of the day. Now we fill 24 hours on multiple channels, often by bringing on politicians to be interviewed, pundits to expound on their observations, and highly opinionated people to spout their bile. Another consideration, there was far less open partisanship back then. Note the occasional people referring back to a time when top people in the major parties could meet to negotiate pieces of legislation. Now we have highly partisan people competing to spout the most soundbite-worthy expressions. Now, I'm reasonably sure many of them have ambitions for higher office, more power, more money, and they're fighting for airtime to build name recognition. So that was the landscape, and there wasn't a matter of entertainment back at the beginning. It turned into entertainment because they found that entertainment is the spoonful of sugar to get their medicine down. We're going to find out more about that when we come back. This is John Chester, The Power of Positive Playlists.
How long has it been since you've updated your brand or restocked your promotional items? The more often people see your company logos and taglines, the more often your company comes to mind. That top-of-mind thinking is exactly what grows businesses and generates revenues. So at Big Feet Creations, I've dedicated my time and talent for over 30 years designing and illustrating print and digital products that people love and remember. Now we're adding website design and audio-video editing too. Call Big Feet Creations at 469-450-7350. I'm a big guy, and I've taken big steps to help you grow big. Big Feet Creations, 469-450-7350. Call today. That's 469-450-7350.
Hi, welcome to Heroes in Action. I'm Ray Amanat, founder and creator of this training system. I originally made it so that everyone can train for free. We have programs for kids, for women, families, and businesses. I'm an author, speaker, and educator on everything that has to do with violence and bullying prevention education. If you'd like more information about who we are and what our programs are, please go to our website at heroesinaction.us or give me a call if you have any questions at 727-314-2534. We hope to see you here to train.
And welcome back. John Chester on the OBBM Network. This is the Power of Positive Playlist. Now, going back to the concept of music and entertainment in media, now, during the early days, music was not used. There were no graphics and million-dollar sets. It was Chet and David and Uncle Walter, sometimes with a cigarette burning in the ashtray on the news desk, and typewritten copies was written to for the people just to read. CBS didn't use music, get this, until 1987. Television news music is used by television stations to brand their news operations. Each television station uses an identifiable news theme. Some themes are used by multiple stations, while others are composed specifically for a certain station. A typical station news music package consists of anywhere from 50 to as many as 1,000 cuts of music, and it is a multi-million-dollar industry. You hear that? People do not invest in anything if it doesn't have some kind of payoff. This is not only in money, but it's in followers, which of course does add to money, but it also adds to increasing of an agenda. So why in the world would they use music unless they wanted to evoke an emotional response? Remember, from the very beginning, show one, I told you, as I've asked thousands of patients before, do you believe that music affects your emotions? The answer is always yes. It has to be yes. It's always yes. It always will be yes. So listen closely. The music intros and bumpers change the tenor they wish to set for the broadcast. Not huge changes, but chord progressions, keys, instruments used, and tempos adjust. Even at times, the colors of the set and banners change to prepare you for how they want you to receive the information and how they approach it. News music patchwork of opens and rejoins and bumpers and closes not only establishes a branding identity for the news station as the no-nonsense reporter, as private detective sound back in the 1970s, local news themes, there was one that was called Move Closer to Your World, but also, more troublingly, occasionally heightens the drama of the news itself. These enhancements have no bearing on the news. Remember, news is just information. A lot of us are asking for the news to inform us, just to let us know the facts. This event happened. These people were affected. It is going to impact my life this way, or not. However, now they say an event happened, they'll tell you why it happens in their belief, and then they'll come up with an impact of how it affects you in Toledo, in Orlando, in Saskatchewan, for all that matters. So all the networks crafted glitzy music to accompany coverage of both the Iraq wars. You listen, by the way, to all of them, ABC, NBC, and CBS. These soundtracks for war blur the line between reality and illusion in troubling ways. When war becomes entertainment, the citizen becomes a passive spectator. Political ads from Ronald Reagan's Morning in America, that was the name of a piece that he used, to Barack Obama's stadium infomercial similarly use music to manipulate emotions. Now, these enhancements are there to manipulate your emotions again. Let me help you get this little kernel down. If I tell you it's night outside, does that trigger an emotion? Well, if you're afraid of night, yeah, it might. Or if you have to get to work at night, it might. But those are two different bits of information. Well, it's the same information, but it's two different responses. One is, well, I got to get to work. Two is an emotional response. The news outlets now are going for the emotional response, not the information. Now, remember earlier I said that shapes emotional responses and creates a smooth flow between scenes and segments. It gives meaning to a character's actions. It reinforces themes or it links a series of events. When talking about music and media, now, and for a movie, you got to have music. I've listened quite a few times to some movies without music, and it's hilarious and it's dull. And matter of fact, it's sometimes just plain old uncomfortable. And you're like, is this over yet? And a movie that's an hour and a half to 2 hours long seems like it's ages because the music's not there to propel it, to enhance it, to give voice to the characters when they're not speaking. The motifs and themes, tempos, all are there to cue you to respond to the visuals, the storyline, actors, and resolutions. But that stuff is not needed in the news unless there is a need for you to respond to a certain stories, characters, or calls to action. Now news has call to action. If you're an entrepreneur, you've heard that term because you'll state a problem, you'll say you may or may not have a solution for it, and then you always are supposed to wrap up with a call to action. You need to do this. If you want to help, if you're looking for a call to action. News stories often will embed a hook of a call to action. Now, how stories are placed in broadcast is everything. Like the days of newspapers, if a story was a headline above the fold, the publisher, the editor-in-chief expected you to be in line with how they presented a story. In today's media, we not only follow the Joseph Goebbels ideology, as the Durham report shows us, but how attack pieces are placed in movies, music, documentaries, so-called. Music changes emotions. We're going to find out more when we get back. This is John Chester, the Power of Positive Playlist.
JR here with the Veterans Ranch. We provide equine therapy services to veterans and their families in Florida and the great state of Texas, and it's always free of charge. Equine therapy is very special in that it helps veterans build a bond of trust with an animal inherently born not to trust anyone. This helps them release burdens and walk off a new and improved version of themselves. Our veterans are suffering with PTSD from their time in service. Sadly, the daily veteran suicide rate is on the rise, and other veterans are struggling with the transition from military to civilian life. The Veterans Ranch is here to serve these veterans and their families through these issues for as long as they need us. Your call to action today is to go to theveteransranch.org and hit that donate button and make a one-time or monthly pledge. Your precious gifts will relocate our headquarters to North Texas so we can serve 5,000 to 10,000 Texas veterans and their families each year. Thank you for your support. Theveteransranch.org, theveteransranch.org.
And welcome back, John Chester, Power of a Positive Playlist. So, in summation, you're going to hear this from me as you've heard it now for 3 years? Music changes emotion. That's my number one statement. You need to know and admit that. Why? Because they know that as well and are using music to alter opinions, to sway elections, to manipulate laws and redefine right and wrong. We know they're using it. They know they're using it. You need to know they're manipulating, when they're manipulating, why they're manipulating, okay? Let's do this kind of comparatively. This show has always been about the power of a positive playlist. And this show's kind of rare. Today's edition is rare because I'm kind of going off into the weeds and venturing into the dark and what some people would call paranoid or conspiracy stuff, and it's not. A lot of it's very research. Everything I pulled up, any stats, and I'm going to give credit to a couple of people at the end of this that I quoted using this. It's all out there and very well researched. So you need to be out there and look for it yourself. If this is the power of a positive playlist, and it is something I've investigated and I've seen actually improve people's lives, we have to know that there's a negative playlist. And it's being used by other forces, other people, for other reasons that is their agenda. We don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want it for you. I don't want it for your kids. I don't want it for your friends, your relatives. I don't want it for anybody. I don't want it for your dog, for crying out loud, okay? I want you to be in control. Please, some people say, well, he just wants them to listen to your network or listen to your show. You know what? I want you to listen to yourself. I want you to be informed. You do it yourself. Go out there and get the information. Understand what a minor chord does. Understand when they put a picture and sound with it, what actually happens to the brain itself, how it affects your organs, your gut, how it changes your drive. When they show a sexual image and certain types of chords that come up in movies and commercials, why it pulls people together. You can look at how it's actually physically changing the people out there, how women are dressing different now, how men are changing their looks from, say, 20 years ago. Why? Because the way the images are changing and it's presented with music. So how you listen to your music and how to know when a song is manipulating, where it's used or why they put that music there. I've been training you to listen for that. That's on you. You can go back to any one of the shows. You can buy the book. We're on all kinds of places like Getter. You can follow us on the OBBM channels and the feeds that we're on. The information is out there. You have no reason to turn a blind eye. When somebody mentions that, oh, it just feels good that way, or gee, I feel so emotionally driven, don't be emotionally driven. Even love itself shouldn't be 100% emotionally driven. Because if it is, that's manipulation, and you will be played with. So there's a lot of ways to work around this. I had somebody here in the studio mention, watch the news through the closed captions is a great start. That way you're not going to be hearing inflections, because their inflections are musically trained as well. What is it that Don Henley says? I could have been an actor, but I wound up here. I don't have to look good, I just have to be clear. Okay, so that talks about how he looks, how he's presented, and the inflections that are used. You can tell what they want you to really pay more attention to by their inflections, because it's a music concept. So yes, you can listen through closed captions. You can read at various sources. Don't just get it from one. If you get your news from just NPR or from Fox or from Newsmax or wherever, then you're going to be narrow-minded. Just like I tell people, if you get your music only from one genre, like just rock or jazz or country, that's narrow-minded. You have to be open-wide about what you want, how you want to be fed. It's a buffet out there of information. You could pull up to the salad bar and go, ooh, I want some of that, I want some of that, I want some of that. Nobody goes to a salad bar and just eats chickpeas, for crying out loud. Why do they have chickpeas at a salad bar? I don't know. It's disgusting. Or beets. Those things need to be thrown out as well. Beets. You love beets? Susan loved beets. Well, beats me. Nevertheless, you have to have a big, broad palette of things that you really want. That way, in your news information gathering, you can know what's happening. And you can figure it out yourself. Be aware how your music is treating you, because it talks to you in certain ways and it speaks to you individually and only you. So thanks to Timothy Judd and his thorough article on the manipulative power of TV news music. Understand the tail is wagging more than the dog here, and you need to have your ears wide open. Like I said, join us on the OBBM network, Getter, and several other platforms like Rumble and well, you go figure it out. Thanks for your time. This is John Chester, the Power of Positive playlist on the OBBM. God bless.
Well, you did it, yes. And find me on Getter too. So it's not just OBBM, but John Chester.
You've been been listening to Power of a Positive Playlist with music therapist and life coach John Ivor Chester on the OBBM Network podcast. Power of a Positive Playlist airs each Monday and Wednesday at noon Central and 5 p.m. Central on OBBM Radio in the Offbeat Business app, or get the OBBM Network podcast on demand in podcast directories everywhere. For more insight or to book John for speaking or hire John for your therapeutic environments, go to ivorchester.com.